Why do so many people struggle to understand Hinduism? Why do they just not get it? It doesn't matter if someone is a Westerner or even a Hindu themselves. A huge number of people can't wrap their head around it. But why? At the same time, there are people who understand it incredibly well.
And then repeat some mantra, which acts as a focal point.
The yogis explain that God is everything, the beauty and the destruction as well.
Consciousness है. We can find it within ourselves, but
In this video, we are going to talk about the 6 main reasons why people just don't get Hinduism. And trust me, if you can conquer these 6 barriers, understanding Hinduism becomes surprisingly easy. So let's dive straight into it. You have definitely met someone who keeps asking, why this? Why that? Why so many gods? Why Buddha said there is no self? They ask why over and over, but they never stay long enough to understand the answer. They don't explore the perspective behind the teaching. They don't test the idea. They don't dig deeper. This is what I call the cliffhanger mindset. They stop at the question, hang there dramatically, and never go beyond it. For example, look at this guy.
It doesn't really solve the problem, it denies the self entirely. You're not a person with a soul, you're just a temporary bundle of thoughts and sensations. But if that's really true, then who exactly is suffering? Who is the one who's following the eightfold path? Who is the one who reaches enlightenment? The entire system presupposes.
See, asking a question is good, but he doesn't go further. He doesn't investigate why the Buddha said it, what context it was said in, or what that teaching is actually pointing toward. Hinduism and Buddhism require you to hold a question for long periods of time, not minutes, not hours, but sometimes weeks, months, or years. If you can't sit with the question, the meaning collapses instantly. Let's fix the question he raised. Who reaches enlightenment? He said, if there is no self, then who reaches enlightenment? The answer is simple. It's not a person. It's understanding. Understanding evolves. Understanding matures. Understanding awakens. And what is that understanding? First, it's realizing that the personal self we cling to is just a bundle of memories, thoughts, experiences, and conditioning. When that illusion drops, another layer becomes visible. You begin to see that everything that happens, sensations, emotions, desires, identity, is just nature's play, a back and forth dance of conditions, rising and dissolving. And here's the important part. This clarity doesn't appear because you force it. Understanding happens on its own, like a light turning on in a dark room. From that understanding, something even deeper reveals itself. The consciousness. Noticing all of this. Enlightenment isn't I become supreme. It's the realization that you were never anything else. You'll see many people confidently saying, I think really deeply. I am a deep thinker. Until they get hit with a shloka they can't translate. Anyone can translate words, sure, but do you understand their knowledge? Do you get the context? That's the hard part. Most people don't actually like deep thinking. They don't enjoy critical analysis, especially in philosophy. Hinduism and Buddhism demand deep thinking. You can translate a shloka in 5 minutes, but understanding its real meaning might take weeks. Translation does not equal understanding. You can know the word and still miss the wisdom. Now, let's look at it psychologically. Research shows humans rely heavily on mental shortcuts. We follow the principle of least effort. Humans and animals both pick the path of least resistance by default. We prefer simple, no effort answers. But critical thinking is painful, it's slow, it's frustrating. Imagine trying to decode one shloka for 30 days or 78 days, testing ideas, reshaping them, discarding them. It can feel maddening when the pieces don't click. Then there are cognitive biases. The brain has its own loopholes. Confirmation bias is the biggest one. People look only for information that matches what they already believe. So instead of real analysis, they take shortcuts. Like millions of gods, cow worshippers, they reduce a complex tradition into means. Deep thinking means confronting uncomfortable truths. Most people are allergic to anything that threatens their ego or worldview. So they avoid real philosophy because it shakes their mental comfort zone. And let's be honest, People are already drowning in daily problems. Career stress, financial stress, relationship issues, health issues. Their mental energy gets used up solving life problems. After all that, who wants to understand what Krishna meant in one line? That's why many people prefer simplicity. Some people have the time and patience to explore the complexity of Hinduism. They dive into Vedanta and Upanishads. Others don't. So they choose the Bhakti path. It's simple, beautiful, and requires less mental bandwidth. Both paths work, but deep thinking that demands space, time, and a mind that's willing to get uncomfortable. Everyone views Hinduism through their own cultural filters. For example, Westerners come from a monotheistic background. Their entire worldview is shaped around singularity. So when they encounter Hinduism, where divinity appears everywhere and in countless forms, it feels strange to them. It goes against decades of hearing one God, one truth. That conditioning creates uneasiness.
You can believe there's 6 gods, 12 gods, 1,000 gods. Something that lacks definitiveness cannot be from God.
He's not wrong for having questions, but he's stuck in that cliffhanger mindset. He's looking at Hinduism through his preconceived lens, expecting everything to match his default worldview. It's like trying to learn Sanskrit through English rules, then asking, why does Sanskrit have 46 main letters? English has only 26. Not everything is built like your familiar worldview. We get confused, not because something is wrong, but because we expect everything to fit our own mental template. Humans aren't naturally good at stepping outside from their own perspective, and honestly, some modern Hindus do the same thing. They approach their own tradition with a shallow, literal, or blind faith mindset instead of curiosity. Hinduism is huge, layered, psychological, philosophical. If your starting lens is wrong, the entire picture looks distorted. You don't need to know everything about Hinduism. Nobody can. It's too vast. But you can understand what it's pointing toward. You can understand the intention behind the ideas. A lot of people read shlokas literally, but shlokas were never meant to be plain instruction or simple poems. They are layered, coded, symbolic, and sometimes intentionally cryptic. Decoding a shloka feels like solving a puzzle. You need context, you need curiosity, and you need the ability to think deeply. Take the first shloka of Rig Veda.
Agnimena purohitam yajnasya devamritvidam hotaram ratnadhatamam.
Most people will just shrug and say, it's a mantra to worship fire god. Nothing more. They stop right there, as if the ancient seers were writing kindergarten rhymes. The English translation usually goes like, I praise Agni, the priest placed at the front, the divine officiant of the sacrifice, the bestower of treasures. But translation is not understanding. So the question becomes, why is the first shloka dedicated to Agni? Why fire god? Why is Agni called the priest? How does Agni bring wealth? How does Agni invoke the gods? This is where the coded dimension opens up. Agni here is not just a physical fire. It represents the first principle from which everything begins. A thought begins with a spark. Action ignites from inner fire. Focus, energy, hunger all arise from this inner Agni. This is why Agni brings wealth. If you channel your inner fire in the right direction, it can create abundance. That is why Agni is the priest. Fire transforms. It takes offerings upward. It bridges the seen and unseen. That is why Agni invokes the gods. Because every beginning in the universe starts with ignition. Some people even compare this symbolic spark to the initial impulse of the Big Bang. I'm not going into that debate, but if the metaphor fits the entire Rig Veda framework, then the depth is undeniable. Digestion, Agni. Thought, Agni. Action, Agni. The hunger to do something, still Agni. Many people struggle with decoding Vedic shlokas, even scholars, because the texts are intentionally multi-layered. They are not meant to be spoon-fed, they are meant to be engaged with. If someone has time and curiosity, they can pick one shloka from anywhere and try to decode it without forcing the personal belief onto it. Just look at it as it is. You may discover something no one else noticed. You might decode something that shifts your entire worldview. These texts hold secrets, not surface level lines. They're not just about worship, they are about understanding reality. Understanding Hinduism requires a certain level of emotional maturity and readiness. You need a stable mind, the willingness to question your identity, and being ready for your ego to collapse. Most people aren't prepared for that. That's why in Hinduism we have the framework: Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. Dharma, your work and duties. Arth, money and resources to sustain yourself and your family while fulfilling your duties. Kama, moral and basic desires. Fulfill them first, understand them, experience them, complete them. Moksha, once you have stabilized these aspects, then you rise above desires and begin to see the ultimate reality, the essence beyond material life. Think about it like this. When you reach a point in life where your finances are stable, your relationships are ideally balanced, and you don't have huge external worries, then you are in a position to explore moksha. That's when you can start asking, who am I? And experience that answer. Not just understand it theoretically, but realize it experientially. No one can force you into this. If someone says, you must learn all these texts, all these shlokas. No, your dharma comes first. Focus on what you need to do in life. Moksha is optional. If your curiosity is there, go for it. If not, don't worry. That's the wisdom behind these 4 pillars: Dharma, Arth, Kam, Moksha. Most people aren't ready, and as we discussed in the previous point, many are too busy with life. That's why this point is crucial. Emotional maturity and readiness are prerequisites for understanding the deeper layers of Hindu philosophy. Hinduism is not just one book. It's thousands of texts, traditions, schools, philosophies, and commentaries. You don't read Hinduism, you explore it. This can overwhelm people. Many want a single simple scripture that anyone can understand.
One God, you can believe there's 6 gods, 12 gods, 1,000 gods. Something that lacks definitiveness cannot be from God. In terms of its fundamentals, that is. One God, Allah. Last Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One Quran, unchanged. It's very simple. A 6-year-old can understand, a plumber can understand, a homeless.
Hinduism is not for a 6-year-old or a person who is distracted or dealing with lots of problems. And by Hinduism, here I mean specifically the Brahman part, the Advaita part, knowing who you truly are. This isn't for a child or someone distracted with daily life struggles. You can of course explore other philosophies, whether in Hinduism or elsewhere, that inspire you in your work. For example, the Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavad Gita is a nectar for life, especially for work-related scenarios. Teach good learnings, but knowledge about Brahman isn't for a child or someone preoccupied with daily problems. It requires a lot of time to understand Brahman, and even now many of us are still exploring it. The complexity of it is what makes it beautiful. This depth is unlike anything seen in other philosophies. At the end, it doesn't matter if the learning comes from Hinduism or elsewhere. What matters is doing the right thing. Take a stand for what is right. Be grounded. Don't have a fragile ego that I know everything. If you just juggle words, you miss the beauty of it. As Bruce Lee said, it's like the finger pointing to the moon. If you look at the finger, you'll miss the heavenly glories it points to. Spread actual peace. At the core, we are all the same. No difference between me or a worm. No difference between me or a star. Not literally. At the core, the essence is the same. That's the crux of it. We all are equal.